This is Nathan Stanford Sr. Here we are again working on the CF forum. If you didn't watch the previous video on the playlist, you may want to go back and watch it because I left a bug in there when I got off and before I started this video. And I wanted you to look at the code and try to figure out exactly what was wrong. The more that you study and try to solve problems by looking and doing them yourself, the better. If you want to drive a car, you don't go watch a bunch of videos. You get in the car and you start to drive. Now, programming is the same way. You want to look at what I'm doing, take the examples, and build your own code from the examples. You can take what I build and then build onto it, add it, change it, play around with it. The more that you code, the better you will get at coding. There is no shortcut to becoming an expert. In fact, in my opinion, anybody who says they're an expert is probably not, because those that have coded for years learn that the way to become a good coder is to keep learning. There's a thing called imposter syndrome. We all get it, no matter how many years you've been coding. You will always feel like you're not as good as you could be. And the thing is you need to spend time, at least a half an hour plus every day. Now, I spent a lot more than that when I first started learning, but at least a half an hour, maybe an hour, but definitely try to build something. And when you run into the problems, then try to figure out, how do I solve them? So let's look at this bug that we had. I'm going to go to the code, and it was this code right here. So if we take this default property and we want to go see, well, what could be causing this problem when we go to insert into the database? So if we come up here and we look at this here, here's all this information, and then we're trying to insert it in here. If we look up the different types of property, insert numeric, insert integer. When you're inserting the database, you tend to say integer and varchar. But with this here, let's look up ColdFusion's property types. Okay, so if we go back here and we say ColdFusion property types. Now, you can already see there's a few here, and integer is one of them. But let's open up two places. This one is Adobe's help, and then there's this CF Docs. We'll click and go there as well. But let's go to Adobe first. So when you come down here to types, you can see that it lists, I'm getting down there to it. Okay, table, types, string, structure. There's a list here of different types, numeric, not integer. So when I was using integer, that was what was causing it to break. So let's go see if that's true or false. So right now I've got it set to numeric. If I try to do this and set this CFC, this object, user object, to hold the data from this user when they sign up. So let's go back here. We're going to create a new user. We're going to register. We're going to put in fake data. And then once we do that, we're going to say register. And if you see here, I don't have it showing up here, but if I hit refresh, it should have put that in the database. So let's go see what's going on. So in the submit user here, we're inserting it into the database. Then we want to set the ID that comes back. So there's a few things I was working on. So let's see here. Let's just, for a second, let's just comment this out. Come down here. And what we're going to do is set the ID to the member ID. For now, what I'm going to do is simply say, Let's just pick one, pick 3. And if we go check the database and we go look and see, let me open it up, and we will go look and see what user that's in here, so we can pick one for sure that exists instead of me just picking an arbitrary number and thinking I'll be right. So here we are. It's loading. Once it loads, I believe I've got it. It's running, so it should come up. It finally did. So I go to databases, go to this database, go to the tables, and then we can see on here there's member, and we can just say, just show me all the members. And if we look, the third one is this fake, so let's actually pick top dog. We'll pick number 5 instead. So number 5. So we will set it to number 5. Now, this is not going and getting the correct one, so let's actually do that as well. So if we said, okay, we need to get all the information, and for right now we're just going to say from the 5th one, this is just for us, not, you do a CF query param normally, but this is for us to go get the information. And so we're going to insert the username, the email, and hopefully the ID. I believe that's the correct way to do it. So let's go ahead. Now it's not inserting the new one we're making. It's inserting that one that we're hard coding for now. So if I hit this, hit refresh, user has top dog, has type, and the ID is 5. And I'm going to get my reading glasses on while I'm coding here. One of the things you get as you get older, you can see better, or it can zoom in like this, but still, you can see ID 5, top dog. It's authenticated because we just logged in, and we got the email address. Now, I didn't put in the created date, password, or anything like that, so let's go back and say, okay, let's do a dump of this here. Now this is where we're inserting it. So let's actually, for right now, let's actually go to the home page. I think it is. And here's where we're outputting the user name, the session.user information. So let's take this and let's go above all this, and let's say, okay, if we get the information from them, the other things that we can get should be coming from inside this query. So let's do a CF dump. Now, one thing I've got, if you have a snippet, you can see I have a CF dump plus, and a CF dump plus 10. These are user snippets that I created. So if you go into File and you go into Settings, Preferences, and then into Configure Snippets, you can go in here and add stuff in here. So what I do is I take the code that I've got. So now let's just do this again, CFD, and hit that. Now I can immediately paste in the username I copied. Now what's the difference between that and CF dump plus? Paste. Now what plus does is it says don't expand and label it as get user info. It automatically took what I typed here, what I pasted there, and put it here. Now let's see the next one, CF dump. Whoops, let's CF dump. I want to do plus 10. Now what does this do? It's the exact same as the plus, except you only get the top 10 results. Now in this particular database, we may not have 10. So let's just say the top 3 results. So now if I hit refresh on this home page, or if I just click up here, you can see, let me zoom back out. In the user session, you can see the email. You can see all the stuff that came back from that query, the password that's hashed. You can see all these different things. We don't need to store the password. inside of the object. And if you look here, this one is the first dump. This one is the second dump. Notice how it's got the name that we added. And if you click here and click here, you see we have all of the different information. And we didn't really need this one to be 3 or 1 or whatever, because there's only one record coming back because we're querying for an exact record. So let's go back to here. We will get rid of these. Now, the information we're getting and the information we're wanting to store, we want to store created at, login at. Now, if you're logging in the first time and you register, that is technically the first time you've logged in, so you might as well say that they logged in right then. And you should turn is authenticated to true. So we'll leave roles alone for now, because we still have to build some stuff for that. I don't know which ones we had off the top of my head. Let's go back here. Let's go here, and let's go like this. So we already have is authenticated, so we don't need that. We already have username. We don't need that. We already have email. We're not doing password because we're not carrying that around, because we're only going to authenticate that. Then the only two we have left is created at and logged in at. So let's actually, instead of, I believe, if I remember correctly, we want to do, let's just say we want to do CF output, and we will close that CF output. And what we want to do is we want to output, what I'll do first is I'll say get, well, it's session.user.getUsername. And then we want to do, we want to do created, well, once again, let's just copy this so I can do it quicker. We want to do that, and then we want to say created at, and we want to say get, and then we want to do one more, and that is going to be session.user.getLogin at, and that way we will get those two dates, but they're not going to look right because we're not date formatting yet. And if you don't know what that is, just pay close attention in a minute and I will be showing that to you. So if we go back here to the home page and we hit refresh, and I probably should have turned that dump off. Let's go back here, and actually, let's leave that dump on for a minute. I changed it here, and I shouldn't have, because that's the reason why it didn't show up. Okay, so let's go back to the index. Here's where we can output it and see it. That's the place we're showing. So now if I do this and I go back here and I hit refresh, in here you can see, let me zoom in, you can see the last activity. It's got information in both the join date and the last activity. So if we look here, we need to be able to get the start date and the end date, and it's not really doing what I wanted it to do when we did the insert. So let's go back and look at when we did the insert. We may delete all the users and do this differently. I was telling it to get that by now and do a timestamp. I'm going to change this to just a date. So we'll change it to date. I'm going to create a new user, and let's see if that fixes the problem I'm seeing. Let's go register, and then we're going to create another fake user. And we're going to say this is Ari. So we'll submit it. And now we can go back and click on home. And let's minimize this. ARI, it didn't update because we didn't tell it to get that particular one. We will fix that. Let's go to our database, which is right here. And let's just run all of them. ARI is the newest one. ARI. So we'll come over here. That's number 8. So now we'll go back here to index, and we're going to say we want to get, well, here we're setting it to 8. We want to get 8. So we want to query and get 8, and then we can set it with the correct information. Up here is where the query is. We'll change it to 8. And probably what we need to do, since this is a new variable, I probably need to set the variable. And then here at the end, we can do that. And then we can say, let's change these from gets to sets. And what we want to do is take this and say, and actually, we want to get this from authenticated, and we want to say .username. Whoops, we already have a username, so we don't need that. Created at and logged in at. We want to do created at, and we want to do updated at. Now let's see if that's going to work. Go up here. I'm going to get rid of this for right now, and we will dump down here, although I think we're already doing that. Yeah, we're doing it down there. Okay, so we'll do that. Then we'll come back here and hit refresh or click on home. So now we've got it getting a fake name, and if we scroll to the right, we can see it's ARI. And if we hide this and we look, it crashed. So let's see. It got to this session dump. So let's just dump the session. And right before we dump the session, let's do better than that. Let's copy this. Oh, wait, we are dumping that right here. That's where we saw the ARI. So let's do this. Let's go like this. We don't know the ID supposedly in here when we're doing it normally. And so we will do, I think it's .member ID. Yep, see right up here, member ID. So we're going to set that. And we're going to have it get, the query name is get user info. So let's change that to just user info. In fact, I'm going to do query user info. And we'll take all of these and change them to query user info. So now we're getting the data from here. We're seeing it dumped here, which I'm going to change this to say expand false. So that way it will pop up, but it will not be expanded. And then we're going to test to see, is this getting everything I think it should be? Okay, so we're still on home. Looks like the database is coming, but for some reason this date and time is not doing what I wanted. Not sure why. So let's see here. Let me work on figuring that out and come back to you. This has been 20 minutes, so I want to stop, but I want you to look at this and try to figure out why is this happening. I usually have a date and time here in the database. So if I go back to the query and we look, we actually have a date and time here in the database. Now the last one, we only put the date in. So let's go back. I want to keep the timestamp in there because that way if someone logs in now and then a few hours later logs in again, you'll have both records. So what I'm going to do is we're going to come back and fix this in the next video.